Good evening. First of all, let me thank President Gunaris for the invitation, and Ilias as well. It's always a pleasure to come to Greece, although I brought some rain with me. Would have loved to see a blue sky as usual. I also find it a pity that most of the politicians, except the one from the opposition, left while I'm speaking, because I have some clear messages for them being in power right now. Having said that, I hope that the audience will follow a little bit what I want to do. Basically, I want to guide you through the agenda. There is an agenda, basically, for the European plastics industry, which is there, which has been set. And the last year has been a very difficult year for me because I was in many meetings, having to defend why I'm still working in the plastics industry. And this is new to me because I feel that consumers are getting wrong messages, and sometimes politicians are responsible for these messages. So we have to be very careful, I think, in our society, how we are dealing with all these issues. Plastics industry is one of the most regulated industries, I think, on a European level. It was said in the previous presentation. What I also liked is, at least, finally, we have a study on the Greek plastics industry. Congratulations. I think it's about 20 years I'm waiting for this. Anyway, the point is that many of the things which have been said in that presentation are very critical, I think, for the industry. This is the content of my presentation. I will stick to my 15 minutes, but please stop me if I go a little bit beyond. Some numbers about the European plastics industry, what it is. I mean, it is as important as the industry in Greece on a European level. I mean, it's a huge industry and 50,000 small and medium-sized enterprises which are connected, and it's really the heart of the industry. You have polymer suppliers and you have recyclers which are part of that. It's one big family. But the plastics converters, those who are really buying polymers and transforming them in all the applications we know, I think are vital for the survival of this industry. And they contribute so much to society. But I'm not here to talk about the benefits of plastics. I'm here to talk about the agenda and the political agenda. I mean, we have to be honest. And why are we in this political agenda? Circular economy package. The industry has been pushed to do things more on a voluntary basis when it comes to recycling. And it took us about a year in 2018 to agree with the European Commission on voluntary measures. I mean, we were voluntarily going to recycle more. We wanted to do more. We started per polymer type, for PVC, for PET, for polyolefins, for polystyrene, and so on. At the end of that, the European Commission said, okay, now we want the brand owners which are leading the way, to acknowledge your efforts and to help you to reach your targets. So they pushed the brands to come out with pledges, and there were about 70 pledges. You know the media, you've seen the brands which have pledged about recycled content, about design for recycling, and so on. So Circular Plastics Alliance was born, and basically we are working since a year now on 5 topics: recycled content, design for recycling, collection and sorting, R&D, including chemical recycling, and monitoring of progress. And the European Commission believes that they will be the matchmaker between demand and supply. I find this a little bit too ambitious for the European Commission. I think market powers have to play that, and we have to look into the availability of the material. But anyway, we are there to set a target, a volume target, which cannot be disputed anymore. Percentages, you can give your own interpretation per member states, how you're going to reach it, how you collect the data, but volumes, you cannot. 1 kilogram in Greece is 1 kilogram in Belgium. So there was a nice picture taken, it was nice show. Everybody wanted to be on that picture that day. But what's next? What are we going to do next? I mean, the circular economy is not going to be implemented in Brussels. Circular economy is implemented in the countries, in the regions, in the cities, and in the homes, basically, where in your household you start turning around and reusing products in a proper way. That's basically the challenge that we have. Now, if you look overall to the plastics circular economy, you can see where we have to work on as an industry. It's evident. I mean, design for recyclability, what is recyclability? Do we agree about the definition of recyclability? I'm not 100% sure it's the same for everybody, recyclability. So we have to work on that very hard. Improving collection and sorting schemes, yes, for sure. If we want to recycle 10 million tons on a European level, we need to get our hands on more material. No plastics leakage to the environment. Okay, so we are starting now to work on the export bans. Promote innovations and investments, mainly private investments, but there is a clear tendency that we have to innovate in chemistry, in chemical recycling. Boost demand for recycled polymers. It says boost demand. It doesn't say make it mandatory to use recycled material. But we are very close to this thing. Better regulatory framework for recycled plastics. Today we still have issues to be able to use recycled PET in food contact applications after all these years. So that's the left part of the chart. On the right side, I've highlighted in yellow where I believe industry is responsible. Industry is responsible in plastics recycling and in product manufacturing. This is what we do best. This is what we know. So product manufacturing, together with the resin suppliers, the converters, they design the products for the brands, for all the applications that we want. We need to incorporate more eco-design and incorporation of recycled materials in our products. On plastics recycling, I highlight mechanical and chemical recycling of utmost importance. We are developing now the future recycling activities. The blue part is something the industry doesn't have fully under control. And in a circular value chain, which is no longer linear, it's about having the wheel turning around together and working together. And if one part of that wheel is blocking, it cannot work. Meaning that the use phase, it's the consumer. What is the consumer doing to get this waste back into the circle? Who is going to help and assist the consumer in doing that? There is a leakage. So there is behavior we have to get into. Collection and sorting. What I miss there, being involved already 30 years in that recycling activity, I miss transparency. I miss transparency in collection and sorting. This is something where we have to work on much harder. Where is innovation in collection and sorting? Where is that part of the puzzle that we are missing? So circularity, definitely, we have to continue working on. When it comes to using recycled material, I mean, recyclers will tell us we can recycle everything and we can do everything. But there are limits. On the mechanical properties of the material, there are limits. From a chemical point of view, from a specification point of view, depending in which application you put your material, there are limits. So we are doing regularly surveys amongst, I think, about 800 plastics converters in Europe. And this chart shows really what is important to make a product. You know, the quality is important. What are the limitations? We have to work on that together with the recyclers. You can put additional filters, you know, to purify your material, but at the end of the day, you end up with a limit. Now that limit, you can work on different sites. You can upgrade the material by compounding it. You can work also on better sorting infrastructures in order to get better material, but there will always remain limits. Same on the aesthetical aspects. I mean, are we going to convince all the brands to give up the colors in branding? I think it's going to be a difficult task. So we have to work on that side as well. How important is that going to be? And this is driving me to the chemical recycling proposal, where I think we can overcome a lot of these limits of mechanical recycling. So we really have to think seriously about all these aspects. Some information about global aspects, and I'm not proud of this chart, actually, because this chart is indicating that, yes, there is 250 million tons of plastics waste in the world, 250 million tons. And I'm only looking to the countries, basically, which are highlighted here, so it's not the entire world. And from that, you will see here, you know, about 80 million tons, we don't know where it goes. It's leaked. Managed landfill and energy recovery. And only 50 million tons, that means 20%, basically is going to recycling, and 30 million tons of recycled material is being used again in applications. This indicates also where the problem is the biggest, and where, of course, we're not going to blame countries, but we need to make sure that we are starting activities in these countries. And we should stop exporting our own waste to these countries. This is unacceptable. Plastics waste is a resource. And I know recycling has been extremely poor in Greece. And I've been speaking here for many years already and telling always the same story. You have now a huge opportunity as Greece to be a part of the next revolution of recycling. This is, for me, the next revolution of recycling. If you look at this study, which basically indicates what are the 3 main points that will transform the world we're talking here, transformation of the world. 5G, number 1, digital platforms, Uber type, whatever you call, and the third one, advanced plastics recycling. A lot of work needs to be done, but technology is there. So let us work as an industry to make sure that pyrolysis, waste to oil or waste to plastics is there, waste to chemicals, or solvent-based recycling. These activities will solve the plastics waste problem that we are having today. Some words on the Single-Use Plastics Directive, the implementation. I've heard from the politicians that you want to go faster than Europe, which is always very nice. But don't make mistakes. This is a European piece of legislation with clear deadlines to achieve and to implement correctly. So if certain guidelines have not yet been decided on how to define in detail what a single-use plastics is, and if countries start to define by their own, well, there will be some issues. There will be some issues, there will be some discussions, it will be delayed, and we will have to deal with all of them. You're not alone. Greece is not alone that wants to run fast. There are regions that want to go much faster even than Greece. Some have already implemented it, but are putting it on hold. Exactly because there is a piece of legislation. It is not that simple. The Commission has engaged with several consultants who need to analyze the whole situation, how to define a single-use plastics. And how you define it in Greece or how you define it in Germany, in Belgium is completely different, because some of the behaviors, the use of plastics packaging are different as well. So please take the right time, but get involved as an industry. The single-use plastics companies need to get involved, need to understand what is at stake there in terms of food waste. And if you like it or not, the paper industry, the aluminium industry are very keen in this development and pushing a lot the alternative materials there, which will not be beneficial for climate change, as we all know. So we have to be very cautious about all these consequences. Nice subject, taxation. Taxation. January 2018, everybody had read the plastic strategy, nice plastic strategy, but nobody read the footnote number 41, which gave power to the European Commission to propose for the multi-annual financial framework, a potential tax on plastics. So we met with the Commissioner for Budgetary Affairs, Mr. Oettinger, and after the meeting he promised us that there would be no taxation on the plastics industry because he had understood how important the plastics industry was in Europe, with all the employment, with all the turnover, with all the taxes that industry already contributes to the European economy. However, the European Commission has been very nice in talking with member states to try to gain support for an own resource calculated on the basis of plastics packaging waste, not recycled. Now in Greece you don't recycle much, huh? So I guess that your contribution could be quite significant. Anyway, the revenue which is foreseen into that budget is about 7 billion euros. 7 billion euros. Now, I would be delighted if our industry which has a turnover of 300 billion euro, would put 7 billion euro into a fund to make the circular economy for plastics. I would be delighted. When I said that to the Commission, he said, no, 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 this is to finance the Brexit. So we do have an issue. We do have an issue. This is, our contribution as an industry to the European Brexit situation. It's a pity that I think discussions are going on like that and that we make nice political statements, but at the end of the day, we need to make the circular economy running, and it's our responsibility. So I do hope, I sincerely hope that some member states will oppose this position and will be strong in their argumentation. We have, of course, some counter-proposal that we are making to this Brexit tax. The 800 euro per ton, I don't really know where it comes from, most likely because, in these discussions you have budget discussions and you know what you are missing and you try to divide according to certain data that you have. I was very pleased with the previous presentation, who basically confirmed that you cannot always rely on Eurostat numbers, because that is what I heard. Multiple problems for the European Commission that I highlighted. How to collect the data, the real data. Is it Eurostat that we have to get into? How to calculate the recycling rate? Because that is changing. Which definition of recycling are we going to use? Input versus output? This is changing in legislation. The lobby from the European Commission on member states is extremely strong. And I can tell you there are a few countries which are still opposing. Italy has welcomed this idea from the European Commission, but Italy is using it now in their own country. They don't want to contribute to the European budget, they want to give their own funds. They started with €1, 1,000 euro per ton. Our industry has been very upset with this. After lots of months of negotiation, they were at 0.5 euro per kilogram or 500 euro per ton. The latest information from this morning is going down, is going to 40 cents per kilogram. But it excludes bio and recycled material, for a reason which for me I have difficulties to understand. But still, this is the latest proposal. Our industry has been in Italy extremely worried about it at a time where 3,000 companies decided to stop production for 1 hour. 3,000 companies. Imagine the food chain. Imagine if they would stop producing for a week. Would people still have food? Eurostat. I looked into the numbers of Eurostat that were presented and discussed with the European Commission. I looked into our numbers that we have. And just to take, not Greece, take Lithuania. This is Eurostat. This is what we believe we know in Lithuania. And I believe I know the industry, and in particular the recycling industry. Is the tax going to be based on that? These are the amounts, similar targets, but the amounts of contributions of member states. The definition and the calculation method is changing. So now, this is important. Now, if Greece is exporting everything, or almost everything, no way you can get that data. This is a critical point. This is extremely critical, because this is in the legislation. So, how are countries which have been so far exporting their plastics waste out of their country? Greece is not alone. There are many countries which are still doing that and still trying to find deviations from China to other countries in the world. I could show you charts about that. But this is not sustainable, this is not the future. My message is clear. We have to deal with our own waste in Europe, but also in the countries. That is the most important point. The alternative But I presented to the European Commission, if they have a Brexit problem, which is a problem for the whole overall budget of the EU, cover it with an extra contribution based on GDP performance. That is basically what we are proposing to the European Commission. Our industry has been active on the European level towards the Circular Plastics Alliance, so we are positive. We want to reach, or do our best to reach, our 10 million tons of use of recycled material. So we have set up a digital platform where all companies can register their volumes, where they're using their volumes. No data, no market. Digital world is there, we have to use this. The next level is we will be proposing blockchain technology in 2-3 years from now in the supply chain to monitor the use of recycled material. These developments are there and should be used. I know it's difficult, mainly in Southern Europe, to get transparency on data and to put data into a digital tool, but that's the only way forward. And we have to regain credibility for our industry. So I hope that this tool will be able to be helpful in it. I'm missing Greece on this. I hope that after today, maybe we'll be in a way to initiate some development also in Greece. Turkey joined. Turkey is willing and understood also the interest in the recycling market. Things are going very, very fast. This tool is ready to integrate chemically recycled products, mechanically recycled products. It's about where basically and how much volume are being used in which market segments of the plastics industry in order to be able to demonstrate, I would say after 2025, where we are using these materials. One last point about Waste-Free Oceans. Waste-Free Oceans is an initiative that we started back in 2011 when the whole debate about marine litter was starting. And today this has grown into global activities. We are setting up a major project involving also the ocean cleanup, which you all know, in the Caribbean. And I compare a little bit the Caribbean also with Greece, basically because of all the islands and the surroundings. Well, there they are working already on making fuel for maritime affairs from plastics waste, which they call the total recycling concept. So imagine having the cruise liners, using some plastics waste to fuel their boats and their ships and getting this turned also in Greece. So from that point of view, I took the liberty to make you already, as an Atlantic Plastics Association, a champion of Waste-Free Oceans. And I would love to come in April or May next year to unite all the people and organizations that really want to do something about it and looking into the future for the activities. So last slide, my key messages. Please try to oppose as a Greek authority about this taxation. Don't tax an industry, don't ban products. Make them circular, help them to become circular. The implementation of the EU Plastics Directive is a critical issue. It needs time. These were some of the positive signs that I heard this evening. But still, we have lost, this is also important, we have lost a single market. With the Single-Use Plastics Directive, we have lost a single market. It's a total fragmentation of the market in Europe. Additionally, there is, as you know, there are trade disputes with the US. So under WTO, the European Commission will have to negotiate potentially higher duties on imports of polymers into the EU, which will also affect those which are importing raw materials. The use of more recycled material in our products, as I said, this is a positive, but this is a trend you cannot stop. So either you jump on the train, you go on it, or you die. As a company, you cannot afford not to be involved in that process. The loss of competitiveness of the plastics converting in Europe and a massive job loss is something politicians have to keep in mind. If they want to promote employment in their country, don't bash on the plastics industry. We have a plastics waste issue, we don't have a plastics issue. Plastics is a part of the solution, was said also previously. Fighting climate change make people maybe and politicians rethink about all the negativity around the material as such, because it's going to be the biggest contribution to the challenge that we have. And I wanted to end my presentation with this quote. Thank you very much for your attention.